I finally got my hands on an ROG Ally X, courtesy of ASUS. This is a loaner unit, and after a while I will have to send this back to ASUS, but for the time being I'm going to have some fun with it. But of course, for the time being, let's talk about 10 major differences. These are major differentiators between the ROG Ally and the Ally X. This video is more for the person that's on the fence about getting an Ally X over their original ROG Ally, or maybe someone that's never bought an ROG Ally but can't decide if they want to get an Ally or an Ally X. And these are going up from least important to most important. But first, if you like this video or any other video I make, please like, subscribe, and share this with all of your friends. Spreading the good gospel of high-tech lowlife will let the YouTube algorithm know that more people want my videos, which in turn will help me out, which in turn will help you out. First and foremost, of course, being the charging speed. Both the original ROG Ally and the Ally X come with a 65-watt charger. But of course, whereas the original Ally only supports 65-watt charging, the Ally X supports up to 100 watts, allowing you to charge the ROG Ally much faster. But of course, you will have to buy a third-party GAN charger, like these that I have right here. I've covered these and I use these daily, and honestly, they're powerful enough to charge a whole laptop as well. But again, I must stress, this is strictly optional. If you're fine with the slower charge speed of the stock charger, then you can stick with that. The next major difference is the micro SD card slot, or rather where it is. The original ROG Ally is infamous for causing micro SD cards to fail, and heck, in some cases, the micro SD card slot itself would fail. In fact, my brother's Ally card slot failed, and he had to get it RMA'd. I know, because I had to help him with that process. It is the same spec, but the big difference here is that they moved it elsewhere. Instead of being on the left of the device, it moved to the right of the device, pretty far away from the exhaust. Hopefully this should prevent the micro SD card slot from failing. But if micro SD cards and their slots keep failing in the Ally X, then we'll probably hear about it pretty soon. It'll also be a good test for ASUS's brand new customer service policies. Hopefully ASUS has improved their customer service, but we'll be hearing about that as well if they don't, you know? The next change is the SSD, or rather the SSD slot itself. The original ROG Ally comes with a 512GB SSD, and it's a fairly decent size, but the Ally X comes with double the storage, 1TB to be exact. So yes, out of the box you get double the storage, but it doesn't sound like a huge deal until you realize that the SSD slot itself is different. Both the Ally and the Ally X have an NVMe slot, but they support different sizes. The Ally supports a 2230 sized NVMe SSD, and the Ally X supports a full-size 2280 sized SSD. For those that'll never open up their Ally, this won't make a huge difference, but for those that want to swap out the SSD for a much bigger SSD, you get a lot more options for your Ally X than you would with your Ally. If you were to look at two SSDs of the same capacity but different sizes, you'll find that the 2280 sized SSD will tend to be cheaper than the 2230 sized SSD. And if you wanted to go at the very tip top, the high end, 2280 sized SSDs can hold more physical storage. There's more physical room in the SSD for more flash chips, and as a result you can get much higher capacities. But some higher capacity SSDs, like an 8TB NVMe SSD, costs more than the Ally itself, which is kind of crazy to me, you know? So with the Ally X supporting full-size 2280 sized SSDs, you can find replacement SSDs for your Ally X at a cheaper price, or get higher capacity replacements if that's more your thing. The next big difference, of course, is the removal of the XG mobile slot. For those not in the know, the original Ally has a proprietary slot towards the top. This port is meant for ASUS's XG mobile devices. These are external GPUs, and these were quite pricey. It's insanely pricey, and I've never gotten the opportunity to use one. I don't really want to spend $2,000 on a 4090 that only works with my ROG Ally. And it seems like that was a good call, because the ROG Ally X doesn't even have an XG mobile slot anymore, instead opting for a USB 4 slot. This USB 4 slot is far more useful because you can plug in Thunderbolt 4 accessories to it. Heck, you can even plug in an external GPU that doesn't belong to ASUS. And unlike the original ROG Ally X, it doesn't co-opt the main USB Type-C port, but rather it manifests as a second USB Type-C port, which means you can plug two things at once. And with USB 4, you can use far more functional docks. As of the making of this video, there aren't too many bespoke USB 4 accessories, but more will come in the future, and the ROG Ally X is, in a way, future-proofed, unlike the original Ally, that is. That said, it is a shame that those that bought the XG mobile unit can't use it with the ROG Ally X. Another major difference is the controller. The controller itself feels, let's just say, a lot nicer. I like this style of D-pad more, the buttons feel more tactile, and Asus claims the sticks will last longer. And on the topic of thumbsticks, the thumbsticks feel tighter than the original Ally itself. This is pretty high up there on the list because the controller does feel that much better, and as a result, it just feels better to play the ROG Ally X. Especially the D-pad. I did not like the shape of the D-pad in the original, and this D-pad style is much better. It's better suited for the types of games I like to play, 2D games, fighting games. It's not to say that the original had a bad and unusable D-pad, but this one is just that much better. Trust me. And on the topic of outside components, let's talk about the shell. Sure, the outside may not look all that different aside from being a brand new color. There's a more grippier texture in the back. While the original Ally wasn't that prone to slipping out of my hands, this one will definitely not slip out of your hands at all. Which is important because we have to talk about the next major difference, and this one sounds like more of a negative. The Ally X is more heavy than the original Ally, and heck, it's even heavier than the Steam Deck OLED. Yes, it is heavier, yes, it feels more dense, and as a result, you can feel it more. Depending on who you are, you may not like this at all, and it might be a total deal breaker, especially if you're looking for a portable device that's light and easy to carry. At first, it doesn't really feel like it's that much heavier, but once you hold it for a longer period of time, you'll start to feel the difference immediately. But it is worth mentioning that the internals have improved pretty noticeably, I might add. In what ways? Well, we're about to talk about it. First and foremost being the RAM. It's faster and there's more of it as well. Admittedly, it's not that big of a speed bump, but it is a speed bump nonetheless. The big takeaway here though is that there's just more RAM. Going up from 16 gigabytes to 24 gigabytes, an extra 8 gigs of RAM. More RAM is more useful in general. You have more memory to run more applications at the same time, or perhaps one particularly memory-hungry application will run better. Or what I suspect is going to happen is that more memory is going to be dedicated to VRAM, which I will say is more important for more higher resolution textures. It was quite the conundrum trying to figure out how much of your RAM you want to dedicate to VRAM on your original ROG Ally. But here you can have a good amount of VRAM and still have a lot of RAM left over for your games. And of course, the next major change is the price. The Z1 Extreme version of the original Ally launched for $649.99, with the weaker Z1 version releasing at $499.99. Both variants of the Ally have gone on sale multiple times. But of course, if you're looking to buy an original ROG Ally at this point, then I would wait for a sale. That said, the Ally X is more expensive at $800. It's about $100 extra for all of the improvements the Ally X gives you. But for someone that already owns the original Ally, that's just another $800 they have to spend. I suspect this will be the biggest deal breaker because people just don't have enough money to spend on multiple devices. So if you've never bought an original ROG Ally and you can afford the Ally X, then I would go for the Ally X. But if you bought the ROG Ally with the Z1 Extreme processor in the past, then you already have like 95% of the experience. But of course, the last major difference that might justify the extra $100 is the battery life. And yes, I've saved the best for last because the battery life is just that much better. So for reference, the original ROG Ally has a 40 watt-hour battery, but the Ally X has an 80 watt-hour battery. This effectively should mean double the battery life, but the truth is, it's even more than double the battery life. While most of the important components have been unchanged for the most part, the same processor, the same display, the ROG Ally X is just more battery efficient overall. The Ally X just drains less battery comparatively, and this will reflect very well. As for a specific battery test, well, as you can tell, I'm doing it right now. As we speak, tests are being ran, and these tests take a long time to film and do in real time, so yeah, there's that too. So now let's talk about what hasn't changed between the two. First and foremost, of course, being the CPU. Both the ROG Ally and Ally X have the AMD Z1 Extreme APU. Same clock speed, same GPU core count, quite literally the same type of CPU. So if you were expecting a massive performance increase, then this isn't it. There is a bit of a performance increase thanks to the increased amount of RAM and the RAM speed, but it's not really a massive performance increase, you know? And next up is the software. While Armoury Crate may be a little different this time around, the underlying software is still Windows at the end of the day. Some believe it to be a good thing because Windows runs all of your games with no issues. And a lot of people claim that with Armoury Crate or even Steam Big Picture mode, it's the same exact experience as a Steam Deck, but unfortunately, it just isn't. Thankfully, Bazzite has day zero support for the ROG Ally, giving you the closest thing to a true Steam Deck experience on the Ally. This is all thanks to the Bazzite team working with Fan the Deck, and I would know, I saw it happen in the group chat. So yes, the Ally X still runs Windows, but there are alternatives if you're interested. And of course, the display. The display is the same display featured on the original Ally, and to be fair, it is a darn good display. It goes up to 120Hz, it's got variable refresh rate, it's a native landscape display, and it's pretty darn color accurate. This may be a disappointment to some to find out that this isn't also OLED, but the truth is, OLED technology and variable refresh rate technology is diametrically opposed, especially on PC. Companies have yet to figure out how to make variable refresh rate work with OLED displays on PCs, and even OLED TVs and phones with so-called variable refresh rates, they all sort of cheat it. It's not true VRR on those devices, so to speak. So yes, OLED and variable refresh rate seem to be fundamentally incompatible. It is quite unfortunate, but maybe I'll be proven wrong in the near future. Anyways, this isn't a full ROG Ally review because, simply put, I haven't had it for long enough. I just got the Ally earlier, so the full review, that'll have to wait. If you like this video, please press the like button and check out our other videos, and if you like those other videos as well, be sure to press the subscribe button and share the good gospel of high-tech lowlife with your friends. Furthermore, we have a community Discord for enlightened individuals such as you. And if you wish to further support high-tech lowlife, be sure to check out our Patreon page. Links in the description.